We want to get the public real fired up. I think we gotta have a base on the moon.
Elon Musk hasn't personally made any direct discoveries on the moon, but his work through SpaceX has significantly impacted lunar exploration.
They found a new type of lunar crystal, which could provide clues about the moon's formation and the processes that have shaped its surface.
SpaceX won a NASA contract to develop a Starship for future moon missions. The establishment of the lunar base and the launch of private moon lander, Musk is truly going wild with his experiment. What else is there that we don't know about? Let's find that out. Number 1. Lunar base. It won't be wrong to say Musk is the Einstein of the 21st century, given all the wild discoveries and plans he has come up with. I mean, who would have thought of establishing a lunar base? Elon Musk and SpaceX certainly could. They're working on a vision to establish a permanently manned lunar base using their lunar starships. Unlike Earthbound starships, these will lack heat shields and flaps, because they're built solely for space and moon landing. In Musk's vision, these starships will form a moon base alpha, with an arc of ships creating a lunar outpost where humans can live, work, and explore. To get there, SpaceX has partnered with NASA for the Artemis missions, which aim to return astronauts to the moon by 2026. NASA has commissioned SpaceX's lunar Starship to ferry astronauts to the moon's surface, with plans to use these lunar vehicles as science stations or even space hotels.
Like and subscribe right now, and you'll have amazing luck for the rest of the week.
Japanese billionaire Yusaku Maezawa and his Dear Moon crew will be the first humans to fly around the moon in a starship. There's more to it. Musk envisions waves of starships transporting cargo, robots, and explorers to build out infrastructure like landing pads, research labs, and habitats. These starships will even be equipped with Starlink internet to keep lunar residents connected to Earth. And as SpaceX scales up production at its Texas Starbase factory, a fleet of lunar-bound starships will soon be reality, carrying supplies, explorers, and visionaries to the first human city on the moon. It's surreal, but Musk believes it's closer than we think. I don't know about you, but I certainly cannot wait for it to become a reality. Number 2. Private moon lander. Elon Musk is truly a man of his word, and now he is making all the unusual possible with his space technology company, SpaceX. Consider this, for example. Intuitive Machines is attempting something unusual with their lunar lander, Odysseus, which launched aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket on February 15, 2024. With its 13-foot-tall Nova-C lander design, Odysseus is equipped with 11 scientific instruments and tech demonstrations from NASA and private clients, including tools that will operate for 7 days before the polar sun sets on the landing site. After the launch from NASA's Kennedy Space Center, Odysseus is now on its way to the moon, with a planned touchdown near the Malapert A crater on February 22nd. His location, near the moon's south pole, is key to NASA's Artemis program, which aims to land astronauts there later this decade.
The moon has 1/6 the gravity of Earth and no atmosphere, so it's a much easier place to launch deeper into the solar system. It really is the launching pad into human exploration out into deep space.
NASA has partnered with Intuitive Machine, investing $118 million to send experiments on the lander, including navigation tech and a camera from Embry-Riddle University to capture its descent. Though the stakes are high, everyone is so optimistic about it, and so am I. Number 3. Alien spaceship on the moon. Did we just spot an alien spaceship on the moon? Well, we did on Google Maps. A weird triangular, wedge-shaped object has been sighted on the lunar surface using Google Maps. This strange object has a row of 7 light dots along its edge. The discovery was made by Wow For Real, a paranormal researcher who shared his discovery in a video, noting that the structure is unlike anything else in the area. After examining it on Google Moon and staring at it for a long time, I can say it's really there, not faked, but I have no clue what it is, Wow For Real shared. The shape of that object resembles the leading edge of a massive triangular aircraft, similar to classified stealth technology, but this object is far larger than any aircraft built on Earth. Some reports even speculate this could be the remnants of a craft or structure not created by human hand. This is believed to be due to the stark contrast it has with its surrounding lunar landscape.
Most shocking video was of the Apollo 20 crew actually exploring the interior of the crashed ship. The video not only showed the bizarre insides of the ancient craft, but also the body of a young woman.
What do you think it is? Could this really be an alien structure, or even an ancient artifact from another civilization? Number 4. Crater on Moon. Recently, scientists from India's ISRO and PRL discovered that Chandrayaan-3, India's latest lunar mission, landed in a buried impact crater that's about 160 kilometers wide and 4.4 kilometers deep. That's a crater nearly as ancient as the South Pole Aitken Basin, one of the oldest and largest known impact basins in our solar system. This landing site is especially intriguing because it lies in the Moon's high-latitude highland region, about 350 kilometers from the South Pole Aitken Basin rim. Over time, this area accumulated debris from numerous impacts, including material ejected from the SPA basin itself, which laid down nearly 1,400 meters of eject. This layer of lunar dust and rock tells the story of a landscape shaped by violent impacts from space and reveals the Moon's history piece by piece. But how do scientists figure this out? Using images from Chandrayaan-3's Pragyan rover and Chandrayaan-2's high-resolution camera, they analyze features like crater depth, shape, and the layers of material around them. Each layer says something about the impact's age and intensity, and it's how we know that 11 other basins and several smaller craters nearby also contributed to the region's unique structure. That's a whole different thing to process. Who knows what else is lying there hidden on the Moon? Number 5. Metals on the Moon. While the Moon looks like a gray rock in the sky, it hides many metals and minerals. For instance, at its heart lies a small, dense core, mainly made of iron with some nickel, about 20% of the Moon's diameter. Above the core is the mantle, rich in minerals like olivine and pyroxene, which sank to the bottom of a magma ocean when the Moon was young. As for the crust, it's made of lighter materials, floated to the top as the magma cooled. This crust is thinner on the side, facing Earth, but why remains a mystery to scientists. Over time, asteroid impacts left dark lava-filled plains called Maria, alongside lighter, older highland regions, all blanketed by a thick layer of powdery dust called regolith. This regolith is packed with metals like titanium and even trace amounts of helium-3, a rare isotope that could one day power fusion energy. Number 6. Water on the Moon. Yes, you heard that right. The Moon has water, and its journey of discovery has been fascinating. For centuries, people assumed our lunar neighbor was dry. In the 1960s, scientists theorized that water might be trapped in craters at the Moon's poles, where sunlight never reaches. This theory stayed unproven until the late 1990s, when NASA's Clementine and Lunar Prospector missions found signs of ice in these shadowed craters. In 2009, multiple missions, including India's Chandrayaan-1, detected signs of hydration on the lunar surface. However, they couldn't confirm if it was water, H2O, or hydroxyl, OH. Then, in 2020, NASA's SOFIA mission confirmed H2O in sunlit regions, proving water isn't just in the shadow, it's widespread across the surface, though in small amounts. To put it in perspective, the Moon is still 100 times drier than the Sahara Desert. It's believed that the origin of this water might be due to continuous delivery from comets, asteroids, or hydrogen from solar wind, impacting oxygen-rich minerals on the Moon. Instruments have found hydrogen-rich areas, especially near the Moon's poles. NASA's Prime 1, scheduled for a near-future mission, aims to see if there are usable quantities of this ice in the lunar South Pole. Do you think there can be enough of it to ensure the survival of humans? Number 7. Disappearance of magnetic field on Moon. The Moon once had a magnetic field that shielded both the Moon and Earth from the harsh radiation that bombards space. The Moon had a magnetosphere similar to Earth's, generated by its molten iron core. This magnetic shield acted like a protective bubble that would stop solar radiation from stripping away Earth's atmosphere, which was crucial for the development of life. But over time, this magnetic field started to fade. Why? Well, just like a cake cooling down after baking, the Moon's smaller size meant its internal heat ran out quickly. As the core cooled, the Moon's magnetic field weakened and eventually disappeared. By about 1.5 billion years ago, it was gone entirely.
Scientists also point out that when the magnetic field of the Moon was up, it might have been closer to the Earth. Furthermore, the Moon was likely about twice as close to the Earth during the time the Moon was inferred to have a strong magnetic field compared with today.
It's believed that the Moon was protecting both itself and the Earth due to its magnetic field, and the Moon's magnetospheres were actually linked with magnetic lines connecting the two in their polar regions. This magnetic connection created a shield that blocks solar radiation from reaching Earth's atmosphere, helping preserve it for billions of years. Number 8. Solar power. NASA's Watts on the Moon challenge and the upcoming photovoltaic investigation on the lunar surface, PILS, are taking everyone by storm, and it's definitely for some good reason. PILS, set to launch on Astrobotic's Peregrine lander, will test some solar cells that are similar to those on modern satellites, and some using advanced gallium arsenide to convert sunlight into power. This mission has gone far beyond capturing energy and now aims to test how these cells withstand intense radiation and temperature swing. Scientists plan to position future solar arrays at the moon's poles, where sunlight can sometimes last for months without setting. I mean, this could provide a steady power supply, especially for long-duration mission. If this works out, that'd be totally game-changing for space exploration. What are your thoughts on it? Number 9. Moon crystal. Recently, Chinese scientists discovered a unique, transparent crystal on the moon's surface called changesite. Why? This crystal is as thin as human hair and is named after the Chinese moon goddess, Chang'e. This tiny mineral, hidden in volcanic debris for over 1 billion years, was uncovered during China's Chang'e 5 mission in 2020, the first lunar sample return since the 1970s.
They found a new type of lunar crystal, which could provide clues about the moon's formation and the processes that have shaped its surface.
But the crystal wasn't the only incredible find. Among the lunar samples was helium-3, a rare form of helium with exciting potential for clean, safe nuclear fusion energy. The irony is that this form of helium is rare on the Earth, but abundant on the moon. Scientists see helium-3 as a holy grail for fusion reactors, a technology that could one day offer a near-limitless, sustainable energy source. This element could be the future of fusion power, as it can generate far less radiation and waste compared to traditional nuclear energy sources. Though a reactor capable of fully harnessing helium-3's potential is still a goal for the future, this discovery renews hope that the moon might provide resources to solve Earth's energy challenges. Number 10. Temperature on the moon. Thanks to NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, LRO, launched in 2009, the Diviner Lunar Radiometer has been key in revealing the moon's extreme temperatures. This instrument has helped scientists measure the surface temperature of the moon with incredible precision.
The average temperature can be low as minus 280 Fahrenheit and can rise up to 260 degrees Fahrenheit.
And its findings are nothing short of mind-blowing. Temperature swings are so wild on the moon. They're beyond anything we experience on Earth. During the lunar day, temperatures soar to 250 degrees, enough to cook anything left outside. But when night falls, temperatures plummet to 208 degrees, 133 degrees. That's a 450-degree swing. But why is the moon so extreme? It's all about the lack of atmosphere. Unlike Earth's thick protective air, the moon has a nearly non-existent exosphere, just a faint layer of gas too thin to trap heat or shield from the sun. This causes the moon's surface to heat up quickly in the sun and cool off just as fast when it's in the dark. What's even more interesting is that near the poles, the moon's craters are in permanent shadow, and NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter found these places colder than anything you could imagine. Temperatures dipping as low as 410 degrees, 200 degrees. These eternal night regions even hide ancient ice deposits, possibly billions of years old. The moon's temperature is visible evidence of how hostile space can be. Number 11. Apennine Mountain. If you think Earth's mountains are cool, wait till you hear about the ones on the moon. The Apennine Mountains on the moon were formed when a massive object, possibly the size of a small planet, collided with the moon. Now, unlike on Earth, where mountains take millions of years to form, these moon mountains appear in an instant. The Apennine Range stretches over 370 miles and is made up of more than 3,000 peaks. And the tallest peak, Mons Huygens, stands a whopping 18,000 feet tall. That's much higher than most mountains here on Earth. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of amazed by the scale of these mountains. I mean, 18,000 feet. That's not something you see every day. Number 12. Moon rocks. Our moon is pretty strange compared to other moons in the solar system. It's much bigger in relation to Earth than most other moons are to their planets. So, how did it get that way? That's the big mystery. But scientists are digging for answers that are literally in moon rocks stored at NASA.
So the two that are going to get opened are this one here and that one there. And those are both from Apollo 17. So this one was sealed under vacuum on the moon and then brought back, never opened.
In 1969, Apollo 11 and astronaut Neil Armstrong found something surprising, a white rock called anorthosite. And It completely changed how scientists thought about the moon's history. Over millions of years, space rocks bombarded the moon, breaking down its surface into a fine, sandy material called regolith. When Armstrong collected his samples, he didn't just get sand. He found 84 tiny pieces of that white rock, anorthosite. But what's so different about them? Well, these pieces came from impacts on the moon and showed that its surface was once a giant ocean of molten rock that cooled into solid rock, mostly made of anorthosite. I guess the moon's been through more drama than we thought. Number 13, discovery of sulfur. You won't believe what scientists just found on the moon. This could totally change the game for space travel and living on other planets. Sulfur has been suspected to exist on the moon, but it was thought to be too rare to matter. It turns out that assumption might have been wrong. The volcanic rock on the moon is rich in sulfur, and when volcanic activity happens, sulfur escapes into the thin atmosphere. Some of it eventually settles at the moon's cold poles, which is where the Chandrayaan-3 rover found it. This is a big deal, honestly. Well, the discovery of sulfur also opens up a ton of possibilities. For one, sulfur could be used to create lunar concrete, which would be a huge step for building structures on the moon. This could mean we wouldn't need to bring water or materials from Earth, and sulfur could even be used to make fertilizers for growing food on the moon. Now, who else is ready to take a trip to the moon in the future? Because I know I am. Number 14, strange light. You are orbiting the moon, and you see strange lights that look like smoke. What would you think? Well, that's exactly what Apollo 8 astronauts saw, and NASA kept it quiet for years. Back in December 1968, Apollo 8 blasted off, heading deep into space. This was a huge deal. It was the first mission to orbit the moon. But as they passed behind the moon, they lost contact with Earth for a whole 45 minutes. This was the farthest any human had ever been from home. When they finally came back into contact, everything seemed fine, and the mission was a success. But the astronauts never said a word about what they saw during that blackout. It was a mystery for years. Now, NASA had a recorder on board that captured everything the astronauts said, and those tapes were eventually declassified. So, when the transcripts came out, people were in for a surprise. The astronauts had been talking about seeing strange lights on the moon, something that looked like a fire. Some people thought it could have been rocket debris from the Apollo mission, as there was still some fuel left in the booster when it was abandoned. But NASA checked, and the boosters weren't anywhere near the moon's surface. They were still in orbit. So now we are left with this question. What did the Apollo 8 astronauts actually see on the moon? Whatever it was, that's actually terrifying. Number 15, lunar regolith. Lunar regolith, or basically the moon's dust, is not like Earth's soil at all. Lunar regolith is the loose, dusty material that covers the surface of the moon. And when I say lunar soil, I am actually talking about the tiny particles smaller than 1 centimeter. This stuff gets kicked up by even the smallest natural forces, and since the moon's atmosphere is so thin, it doesn't go anywhere. The particles are super sharp and sticky, which makes them a huge problem for equipment and astronauts. Well, this dust formed because of constant meteoroid impacts and radiation from space. Over billions of years, these forces have broken down rocks on the moon into this fine, powdery material. Unlike Earth soil, which forms because of oxygen, water, and life, the lunar regolith is just the result of space impacts and harsh conditions. And when someone says lunar soil, they are usually talking about the finer pieces of regolith. But there's also something called lunar dust, which is even smaller. The tricky part is that there's no official definition of what counts as dust. It could be anything smaller than 50 microns or even 10 microns. Well, space is tough, and this dust just proves it. Number 16, lunar dome. Do you know the moon has some wild features? Well, lunar domes are definitely one of the coolest things you probably didn't know about. Lunar domes rise a few hundred meters above the surface, and while most are around 8-12 kilometer wide, some can stretch up to 20 kilometers across, and some even have tiny craters right at the top.
The dome is towering, with a slope of up to 20 degrees and rising 1,500 meters above the lunar surface.
But how did they form? They are formed from stuff that flows slowly because it's thick and sticky, possibly packed with silica. This thing comes from deep beneath the moon's surface. As it rises, it spreads out slowly, cooling and forming these dome-shaped hills. When it comes to naming these domes, there's no official rule, but usually they're named after the nearest crater, with a number to indicate when they were discovered. Number 17, oxygen on moon. In October, the Australian Space Agency and NASA teamed up to send an Australian-made rover to the moon as part of NASA's Artemis program. The rover's job was to collect lunar rocks that could one day be used to produce breathable oxygen on the moon. Now, the moon does have an atmosphere, but it's super thin and made up mostly of hydrogen, neon, and argon. Not exactly the stuff we need to breathe, but there is oxygen on the moon. It's just not in the form we can use. It's trapped inside a material called regolith, which is a moon surface layer made up of rocks and dust. Regolith contains about 45% oxygen, but it's tightly bound up in mineral. So, how do we get it out? Well, we need to break those bonds, and that takes energy. That's basically the process of electrolysis, which we already use on Earth to extract oxygen from alumina. The only difference is that on the moon, we want oxygen as the main product and the metal as a byproduct. Number 18, the South Pole Aitken Basin. The moon has always been a quiet, mysterious place, but there's one spot on the moon that stands out above all. We are talking about the South Pole Aitken Basin, which is located on the far side. This is the largest known impact crater in the entire solar system that was formed billions of years ago by a massive asteroid crash. The South Pole Aitken Basin is huge, spreading around 2,500 kilometers across. And it's not just big, it's also deep. This crater plunges 8 kilometers below the moon's surface. So, when that asteroid hit, it didn't just cause a big bang, it dug deep into the moon's surface, possibly exposing parts of its lower crust, or even its mantle. These are layers of the moon that are usually hidden from view. Number 19. The far side of the moon. The moon's far side is like the ultimate secret, and for a long time, no one knew what it really looked like, because thanks to Earth's gravity, the moon always shows us the same side until 1959. That's when the Soviet spacecraft Luna 3 snapped the first ever photos of the moon's far side. Scientists were expecting to see the dark patches like on the side we know, but the far side was completely different. It was covered in craters and way more pale. Well, scientists figured out that the far side of the moon has a much thicker crust than the side facing us. Number 20, moon caves. Now, what if I told you that the moon has more than just craters and dust? Because recently researchers have confirmed the existence of caves on the moon. The cave is about 130 feet wide and several yards long. Scientists have been guessing that caves like this might exist for over 50 years, but now it's finally proven thanks to Professor Lorenzo Brone from the University of Trento in Italy. So, how did they find this hidden lunar cave? Well, it all started with a spacecraft called the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. Back in 2010, it collected some data, and just recently, researchers took a fresh look at it using new techniques. That's when they spotted radar reflections hinting at a hollow space, a cave. It looks like the moon is full of surprises. Who knows what else we'll dig up next? And that was it for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon to get all our videos on time. Until next time.